area, there are 17 Walmarts there around Tucson. This seems like a big clue. Find out if he bought this in Tucson. Look at those 17 Walmarts.
Yeah, absolutely, Kaylee. And I can tell you from having dealt with Walmart, they have a very, very professionalized security apparatus in place that's actually nationwide. So I'm sure that they can cut through a lot of the white noise of that to get to the purchase history of that particular item pretty exactly. That said, you got to hope a credit card was used in the instance that is in play here, because obviously if that's the case, you got a real pointer, and then you can drill down on who those people are that had a purchase history with this thing relatively recently, and you can explore those leads. The problem becomes if they paid cash and if it was a while ago. According to my sourcing, there are varying protocols among the different stores as to how long they retain video. And as a result, some of them are 30, 60, 90, 120 days. It varies, and it overwrites the video. So as a result, what you need, if it's a cash purchase, is to be able to get this person on video and hope it was recent enough that the video still exists and you can see it. But undoubtedly, narrowing it just to one store, however big it is, Walmart being very big, it's a very, very big clue here. And I would argue maybe the best clue they have right now, at least that I'm aware of, outside of that video we've all seen at the house.
Donna.
Well, speaking of narrowing things down, we've now heard the fact that we have a height sort of parameter here between the 5'9" and 5'11" that they believe this perpetrator is between those heights. So how does that help law enforcement weed through some of these tips that are coming in? Because we've heard, especially since that video was released, there have been so many people who've come forward with tips to the FBI.
Right. So, you know, we've been talking about this on the weekly wrap, you, me, and Josh. And, you know, I think the key here is that how definitive they've been here about the height, because very often you get a pretty good height estimation up front with your sort of first blush crime scene analysis or video analysis. They use these ratios and things like that, and you can get a pretty good range. But as we saw, they brought in a team to do some more detailed analysis using apparently lasers inside that tent that we saw go up and then disappear, and they didn't want the glare to interfere with that. And then they come out with a very, very definitive 5'9", 5'10". That's what this guy is. That tells you, obviously, as you go through things like the purchase history that we just described, if it is a woman who's 5'2", all right, well, you know, that's going to go to the bottom of the pile. And so that's part of the winnowing process that has to go on here, because you have to cast such a wide net.
Yeah, and Emily, the 5'9", 5'10", that's about the average height of a male in the United States. So it doesn't necessarily narrow it down, but helpful nonetheless for screening footage at, let's say, Walmart.
Look, anything definitive is helpful, even if it feels overwhelming statistically when you first hear it. Polly, I want to ask you something. So on the 5th of February, you asked the Bureau during a press conference, we heard you live, asking about genealogical testing and essentially whether the Bureau would be submitting the DNA for any type of testing, but you referenced genealogical, and the Bureau responded that right now the DNA aspect of the case is being handled by the Pima County Sheriff's Department, they said. But then they said, should we get to that point, yes, that would be an option for the FBI to assist. I'm wondering your thoughts on that question and that answer now that we've learned a little bit more about Pima County sending some things to be tested over there all the way to Florida and not Quantico.
Right. So the reason I asked that question, 10 days ago now, whatever it is kind of because of where we are now. So I intuited that we may end up where we are now, which is the following. The sheriff had said prior to my question that we have sent the most likely DNA from the perp to the lab for testing, and we expect a quick answer within 12, 14 hours. When I asked that question, it was after that window, so I knew, okay, they didn't get a one-to-one hit. So what are they going to do now? Normally, that would be the FBI. We saw it in the Koberger case. We saw it in the Rachel Morin case, where they do that more penetrative DNA analysis, the genealogical analysis that gets you to possible family members, anybody, they call it consanguinity, that is, that has blood relations in common. And sometimes it's very low. You get a second cousin and you get a pool of 30 people, 20 people. You got to narrow it down. In Koberger, they ultimately got to his father in Pennsylvania. They looked at him as one of the possibles, and lo and behold, they see he's got a son that lives 10 minutes from the crime scene out in Idaho. So that is when they really focused on Brian. So my question was, okay, since you seem to have not gotten a hit up front, are you going to do that? And that would normally be the Bureau. That's why there's a little bit of controversy, and that's why I got the reaction I got at the press conference, because I think they might have thought, like, did somebody leak tomorrow? Because I asked them not knowing about the glove that's in play now. And they must have been thinking, does he know about the glove? Because that's the glove that we all heard now went down to Florida that the Bureau doesn't have, that they're saying they want to test themselves.
Hey, Paul, it's Sandra here. How curious are you about this gray truck that neighbors said that they saw canvassing the area during the daytime and nighttime hours leading up to all of this? Nancy Grace is putting a lot of emphasis on finding that vehicle because of the fact that they have traced the DNA of the blood on the front steps directly to Nancy Guthrie. And if she was bleeding at the time that she was taken from the home and put in that vehicle, for example, she said it's almost impossible to clean a vehicle entirely of blood. How much weight are you putting into that?
You know, the vehicle has been a very mysterious node in this entire thing, because very clearly he didn't walk there and then walk out with her, rather. So there has to be a vehicle here someplace. If you've been up in the area, as I have, parking the car for something like this on the street is a non-starter. He had to pull into the driveway or do something else, like park someplace nearby and go through the backyards or something. Because remember, I don't think that he actually came in the front door unless miraculously it was unlocked or somebody unlocked it for him. Those front doors, the front doors out here in these low adobe homes, they're really heavy oak. He's not just going to get through that quietly. So my own supposition here is that he would have gone around the back and gone through sliding doors, which are reportedly there. All of this leads to the idea that there is a vehicle in play here. And so if you can find that vehicle, yes, you're going to probably be able, using luminol and various other ways of looking at it with the phosphorescent lighting, you'll be able to pick out, okay, there was blood here, and then we can try to type it. The other thing with the vehicle, and this is a, shot in the dark, but let's remember something. Most Ring cameras, the Nest camera in this case, operate off of batteries. And just because he pulled it off the wall doesn't mean it went dead. And I have not heard that they physically recovered the actual thing, the camera itself, which means it would have still been broadcasting. If he put it in the car, you might have gotten a look at the car if they can undo that code. You might even get audio of him talking or something, or whatever happened in terms of, what you could hear. So it only would be limited by when it goes out of range of the Wi-Fi. The limiting principle there is not the camera, it's the strength of the Wi-Fi signal.